Hey, thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. This is gonna be like a 3-part series, and it's gonna be like a biography kind of my life from as a child to as an adult. So it's gonna be kind of long format content in these videos, but let me just get into this about my life, because I think if I tell the story about my life, some of you guys will have similarities, things like could have happened to you that are similar to me. So let's jump into this. So I was born in Sacramento in 1991. My mom, she was disabled. She was a lot older than my dad. My dad was in his early 20s, maybe 21, 22. He didn't have nothing going for him. He just mowed lawns, and that's how he made money. Side money. Well, any kind of money, because he didn't have a job. My dad wasn't the type of person that was inspired to want to go get. And the reason why I say that is because the way he was raised to suck off the system. And I mean, thankfully I wasn't raised by him, because I would have been thinking the same way. But 30 years later, once I talk to him and kind of feel like where he's at mentally, I can see that the way he was raised kind of put him in the position he was in. Because he didn't think, my dad never thought, hey, I gotta go get a job, I got a kid. Or I gotta go make some money, I gotta pay these bills, I got a kid to take care of. He didn't think like that. He was, I gotta get this check from the state, they're gonna give me a check. And that's the kind of mindset that I got from him. I mean, was it any good? No, because now I really look down on him on those things. From my mom's perspective, my mom was in her late 40s. I don't believe she had any other kids before me, but she was disabled. What I mean by that is she wasn't all there. She was easy to manipulate, and I think that's why my dad really liked my mom, is because she was an older lady, she's easy to manipulate, he could control her, and you know, it didn't work out. So my mom and dad were only together a few years. And when I was about 3 or 4 years old, my mom and dad would fight, argue. He'd leave the house. Hours later, he'd come back. And he just did this as a pattern almost. And I didn't know this until, as an adult. But he wasn't working. He was breaking the law, doing things he shouldn't have been doing, being around people he shouldn't have been around. And I mean, that's what led up to his arrest. And I was about 3 or 4 years old, and we're at our apartment in Rancho Cordova, hear a boom, 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 bam! And the sheriff kicked the door in. I was only probably 4 or 5 feet from the door. So I clearly heard it. And 34 years later, I still hear it. That's how loud it was. And so, after that, my dad was taken to prison. And years later, I figure out he's breaking in houses, causing all kinds of, he hurt people. And my mom didn't see this coming. It was like something out of the left field. It broke her heart. And I think it broke her heart till the day she died. Because the man she loved was not there. In fact, it's more than just my dad. It was a whole generation, I'd have to say, in the 90s, where in a black family, there was no male around. It was all single women trying to raise these men. That's how we got all these soft men nowadays. And luckily that didn't happen to me because of the way I was put into foster care. So long story short, I only stayed with my mom maybe 2 years after that, maybe a year and a half. The police, not the police, but the school teachers were getting concerned. There were days I'd come to school, I didn't have any food, nothing to eat. We had nothing in the house. We survived off EBT. We had nothing. And as a kid, I'd get up, I'd put the same clothes on, go to school. And mentally, physically, everything that affected me. And it feels great to actually tell you guys my story here, but life hits you in ways you don't expect. And that's what it did to me. Soon after, I was picked up by the sheriff. The sheriff came to our door, knocked on my door, and put me in the back of the cop car. As I'm looking out that window, that was literally one of the last times I ever saw my mom. I was sitting in that cop car, looking out that window at 6 years old. And it affects me still to this day. But I try not to blame my dad, but in reality, it's really his fault. If he didn't have the behavior that he had, if he had the intellect that I have, he wouldn't, our whole family would be in a totally different position. There would be generational wealth. The whole story is just fascinating. And so from there, I went into the foster system. And I was put in a receiving home. And I stayed there for about 8 months. I learned kind of how to grow up fast. And living in a receiving home, say you're 7 years old, you're surrounded by kids 14, 15 years old. Their parents are in the same situation as yours. You don't have anybody. In fact, I would try to bond with the counselor or the lady that's just looking after the kids because I never had that motherly connection that a lot of people have. They never had it. As a kid, still as an adult, never experienced it. So it really mentally affected me. And so they put me in counseling. And I was in counseling for years. Maybe about 6 years. And every week. They would bring me to a room with the lady with a clipboard, and they'd have a box of sand with some, you know, like little toys and stuff, and she would just get me to talk and just try to express what I was feeling in the moment or in the time. And years later, as an adult, when I think back at that, I mean, that actually helped me. Sitting down, talking to a female, a stranger, as a kid, about not having that bond, that family connection. It helped me at the time, and I didn't realize it. But as a kid, every week I would sit down with that lady and I would just talk to her about things that I was going through. Do I miss my mom? Do I miss my dad? How am I hanging in? How's school? Do I have any friends? And we would get into very deep conversations. And we talked about, you know, the what ifs. And I'm a kid. And a kid really doesn't know much. And so it really affected me, even still to this day, as I think about it. And it's hard to explain. I mean, it's really hard to explain as an adult, not having that bond as a child with your parents. And what does it do to you as an adult that you don't even know until it hits you? And that's kind of what I've been living in the last year and a half. Is it hit me, and I don't know what to do. What am I going to go get into therapy? I was in that for 6 years as a child. I mean, talking to you guys here on YouTube and telling you guys what I experienced as a child and how it affected me. Maybe this can rub off on somebody, and maybe you guys can share your preferences on how it affected you. Maybe we can learn from each other. So that's why this is going to be a 3-part series. And I'm going to basically tell about my whole life. It's going to be a little mini biography here. And hopefully in 20 years I can write it or even make a deeper video in deeper detail. So we're at about 9 years old. I'm still going through counseling, and I'm still getting out of the receiving home at that point. I'm at that point where I'm going and I'm visiting foster care places and meeting people. And I was scared because I didn't know what's going to happen. And so I did it, and I got into my first foster home. And we're going to stop it right there. And we're going to continue here on part 2 as I tell you guys about my life as a foster kid, what I experienced, and kind of how that shaped me into an adult as we go into part 3 here. I do want to thank you guys for watching. And yeah, it really touches me. Hit the subscribe button below. Write in the comments if you're a foster kid and you went through similar experience. Please put it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. Thank you guys, and have a nice day.